I want to find the underlying answer, if there is one, beyond how did this happen to me. I want to prevent it from happening in the future and kind of like nip it in the bud, because I feel like I could do my like whole protocol on fixing this problem, and if I just don't understand the underlying problem that actually exists, then I'm going to keep having to deal with this the rest of my life. It's like walking through a swamp and like carrying a backpack full of like dry socks, and every now and then you put on a new pair of dry socks, but you're still walking in that swamp. You're gonna get mushy swamp feet again until you get out of the swamp, right? I'm trying to get out of the swamp here. I want to make this like succinct, but I also have a hard time because it's not a succinct thing. It's even to like understand it is not a succinct thing, because it's not like I have just one problem with my body. It's a problem with like my whole body system. So I can't just explain it easy. I don't know, it's hard. So in order to like explain it succinctly, I'm like, well, I'm missing all this stuff that could be important for like someone else going through this. So anyways, just use this as a point of reference to like kind of gauge like what I did and like how it's going. And just know that it could change. I could be doing something really wrong, but this is my reasoning, and this is like my evidence of why I chose it, and you can do what you want with it, I guess. So I guess that's my point to this whole thing. But basically, once I made that video, I had a doctor's appointment 2 days later. I'd already had the doctor's appointment like made, but I did have the doctor's appointment 2 days later after I made that video. And it was the second time that I requested blood draws. The first time was in September of 2024. That was when I first learned that I had B6 toxicity, because I ordered my own panel through Quest. In the state that I live in, you can just go to Quest Labs or whatever. You go on their website, and I'm not like affiliated with them at all, but you go on their website and I couldn't find a ton of like B6 tests. What's available for professionals is not the same as what's available for like the public, but there are some like that are available for the public that I was interested in. And if I was already gonna pay for something, I wanted to have like a bunch of different baselines that I couldn't just get. Like I could get vitamin D tests, so I wasn't gonna pay for that. I wanted to get like other B vitamins, because I was taking a multi-B vitamin supplement, and I was just curious if like all of my B vitamins were kind of out of whack. So I was just trying to start somewhere, and that's why I started with that. So I ordered this test that had this whole panel of a bunch of different Bs, and it turned out to be like this keto panel. I don't even know if they sell it anymore, but I realized after the fact that there was a smaller cluster of a panel that wasn't as expensive that still had a B6 sample. So that's what I was really interested in. And I was actually pretty convinced at that time that I had a B6 deficiency. So if you know anything about this whole thing, like B6 toxicity and deficiency have overlapping symptoms. So it's really difficult to decide like which one it is. So I was actually really surprised when I got my blood work, and I'll put my blood work on the screen right now, and I'll kind of like go over it with you so you can kind of sort of see what I was starting with. The reason why I'm showing you like what I started with is because you will eventually understand why I made the choices that I made, like just barely, like 2 months ago, the last time that I went to the doctors. For context, I don't know how long I was toxic. I do know how long that I took the supplements, and I do know how long or how much. And if you're interested in that video, there is a whole entire video dedicated to all of my symptoms in chronological order and everything that I took, and like the brands and like specific doses amount and the different kinds of B6 that I ingested. There's a video that talks about that. But so that might help you, but I don't know if that really does help you. But there's a video that exists in my playlist for that. So my results were We've got biotin, which is B7, and that was kind of like high-ish normal. Then we got calcium, middle normal. Iron, I was expecting to be anemic. Iron, because the social media would just make you believe that everybody's anemic, everybody is like low on this, low on that, and this is why testing is important. Like, you can feel not well, you can have all the symptoms of these overlapping things that like look like you might have it, but until you actually test it, because I just thought that I was always tired because I was low on iron, and I even thought about supplementing with iron, but here you go, I wasn't even deficient whatsoever. I was more normal, very normal. Magnesium, normal. Phosphate, normal. Then we get to B1, which is thiamine. They didn't have enough blood vials at the time, I think, and they just messed up the test. So they ended up giving me the test for free because they messed this up, but I'd paid for it with my own money. But it was nice because I got this expensive test for free because they screwed up, but I don't have the B1 information as a baseline for you. So I was trying to get like a panel that had all these Bs. So B12 was low normal. And I was trying to figure out if my peripheral neuropathy was because I was low on vitamin B12. Once you get a certain like amount of, like, I think, don't quote me on this, but I think I read anywhere between like 200 to like 300 and something, 400 is when you can start to show deficiency symptoms. Once you get past that and you're like more into the very normal range, like you're way into like the whole range where it's like up until like 1100 or whatever, then like you don't really have those symptoms. So I think I was trying to see if I was super low. And it was kind of funny to see, like, I was normal in some of the Bs and I was kind of low normal in some of the Bs, and then I was very toxic. So the last one was the B6, which was the main reason I got this test. And so I see that normal ends at 21.7 on this scale, this particular scale that Quest uses. And I was at 73. I'm not going to try to like convince you that this is the best way to see if you're toxic or like the validity of the blood test. The only thing that I can say to that, because some people are just like, well, that's not very credible. You know what? Like, I don't have other tools to figure this out. I'm just going to follow the directions the best that I can to make my results reliable. Therefore, every single time I get a B6 blood test, I'm going to fast, and I'm going to do the same exact thing every time to prepare my body so that it's like my baseline is the same every time. I'm not going to eat one time and then like, you know, go and not fast and take that as comparable. See if there's a major difference. I'm not trying to like convince you that these tests are reliable or the best way or like whatever, because like some people just poke holes in that. It's like, well, this is what's available, right? Like I can't change the science that's available to me. And now I've convinced my doctor that I want this test to be processed through my insurance, so it's less of a barrier to entry to get this information to me so that I can adjust my strategy, even if my strategy is not being like made up by my doctor and it's just a strategy that I have to follow on my own. At least I have something to kind of tell me. You know, it's not as easy as like if I was diabetic and like I just prick my finger at home and it's like easy to gain this information without like having a whole bunch of people involved or a whole bunch of extra money. Like, it's just not readily available. It's difficult, and so there's a lot of guesswork. And because there's a lot of guesswork, it's just hard to treat. And so I'm trying to kind of talk about the easiest ways in order to get information that you can use, and that's that. So I got the blood test and it was high. So that was the first time, and that was in September. So I took that information and I was like kind of curious about why all of my Bs were not toxic, if one of them was, and like vice versa. Why was some normal, why was some low? You know, like I just kind of thought that that was interesting. But at the same time, I knew I needed to do some work at home because of the test. that's when I first started trying to figure out protocol on how to like be not toxic. I didn't even know toxicity like exists, or like what was the road ahead of me, right? It's like not clear really on the internet like what to do. So I like a lot of people went to Understanding B6 Toxicity, their little website. And I have said before that I'm not a fan of Facebook groups. I saw that they have a Facebook group, but I also saw that they have like this PDF for $20-something or whatever that you can buy. And it's basically like an outline of their protocol to follow on how people got well. And I was like, well, there's nothing else online that kind of shows you how to get well. So I'm just gonna follow this and just kind of like hope for the best and then try to work with my medical team. But as you know, working with your medical team is like kind of like suggesting that there's aliens. It's not met with open arms, and you kind of just have to take little bits and pieces of what they give you and kind of like what you know from this protocol or whatever. So there's a ton of people that don't think that this is a real thing, and that's a hindrance, honestly. But also, maybe it's not a real thing. I have no idea, right? Like I just know that I had a blood test, it said this. I'm not sure what to do with that. I just know how I feel. So the point being is to feel better. I'm just trying to get above this sucks. Like I'm trying to raise my quality of life. That's like all I care about. And so like, I don't care to like understand it fully. I don't care to be an expert, and I don't care to like, you know, do all these things. I'm just trying to get better because it physically hurts, and you're very motivated when something physically hurts. So at that point, I asked, you know, my doctor for help, and he was like, no help. And so I went to this protocol thing, and that's when I started to do several different things as far as understanding the detox phase. And you saw me detox. I had to stop YouTube because it was so painful. It's like, I never taken addictive drugs before and like detox, but I've read online that it's worse than detoxing from some of those, like a benzo or something. It's kind of like worse. So I can only imagine. But it's like a neurotoxin, and it like has like this really long half-life. And yeah, so like that's just assuming that your body, this is the only thing kind of like wrong with it. Like you could have all kinds of different things wrong with it at the same time, right? So that has nothing to do with this, but then commingled into has something to do with this, because this B6 toxicity thing affects all of your systems in your body. So anyway, so where do I go from there? So I detoxed. I tried to follow the strict protocol, and I was using my nutrition app, Chronometer, at that point. Well, I still use it. And I was weighing out my food. I was eating single ingredient things. The reason why I was eating single ingredient things was because when you pick the foods in the app, you're able to pick what source the information is pulled from. And there's only a few sources within this app. There's like a million different like white breads, but like you can see what source is giving that white bread nutritional information. And I always use the source that's like NCCDB or something. That's the source that usually has the B6 and those kinds of vitamins. If there is that vitamin in that food, it usually is available. And so that source, that data source, does not have an exhaustive list of food, but it does have the basic food. So I had to eat basic food so that I could have the most reliable information. Reliable meaning I knew to like almost like exact, if I weighed it out by grams, how much food equaled this B6 thing, because I didn't want to go over, because the point in the very beginning, I think towards, you know, the whole process actually is to expel this excess B6 from your body that wasn't supposed to store up, but now it is stored up in all these bad places. And when you're toxic, you need to like get rid of that. The ways that you get rid of that, according to the internet, is like exercise. water, and slowly doing it with food. You can't just like not eat. If you think, oh, I'm just gonna get rid of the excess by like fasting the whole time, you have to like, it's a little bit, or else you feel really sick. And I don't even think that's very good. So I can even feel the effects of my body when I don't eat enough B6, and then I feel the effects in my body when I eat too much foods with B6. Like it feels like I'm on drugs. I don't know how to describe it other than it feels not right. It feels yucky. It feels either I'm like woozy or I'm sick, or it feels like I'm like hyped up on drugs. Like I have way too much caffeine in my body or something when I have way too much B6. So anyways, in the very beginning, once I first learned about that, I was like, okay, I just need to eat up until my recommended daily amount. So there's a recommended daily amount in this chronometer thing. So there's this B6, and it'll say you should eat up until 100% of your daily recommended amount. And for an adult woman, it was like 1.3 milligrams or megagrams, whatever, mg. So I would weigh out my food, eat single ingredient food, so that I would know to, you know, very closely what I was actually ingesting. This is assuming that I'm like using what I'm eating up until like 100%. I don't know how well my body absorbs it, right? But I'm just going by what I can go by. And so I was like, well, let's eat enough to like get a daily amount, because you're supposed to replenish this daily amount in your body every day, because it's technically not supposed to store up. So you're supposed to like eat enough every day, and your body is supposed to know what to do with it every day, right? So it goes away, it doesn't store, it's not supposed to store. And if you have an excess, well, you gotta use some of that storage. So it just made sense in my mind to eat at a deficit, but eat enough, right? So like I was eating like 70 to 80% every single day of my daily recommended amount. I would never go over. So in the very beginning, I lost some weight because I didn't know like a ton of foods that didn't have any, had like zero. Like egg whites had like basically no B6. But like living on egg whites after like a certain time of day, because you've already eaten all the food that like takes up your B6 or whatever, and you have to stop. Egg whites and like water. So you have to be kind of like this weird magician of like how to not starve, how to be nutritionally balanced, but also how to not go past this B6 amount. It's like this weird calculus equation, and it often sucks. And it's often food that you would never normally eat if you want to eat like nutritionally, like, you know, keep alive and like keep balanced to make sure you don't get other kind of problems. So like I didn't want to get scurvy just because I was like avoiding B6. You know, I was trying to keep all of my other vitamins in balance, and it became like this annoyance, right? You don't see food as food anymore. You see it as like, this is a tool to like make sure that my body just feels okay. It's not like food anymore. I don't know, it's annoying. But this is what you kind of have to do. Some people can get better if you just stop supplements. Like some people don't have to do like the whole weighing out the food, and they don't have to be really careful. Some people, the reason why they got toxic or whatever is because of the food, and they weren't even supplementing. You got to be careful though, because there's fortified food, and the fortified food has the added B vitamins or added vitamins. So like that's why single ingredient things. Anyways, I don't know why we have to get into that, but that's what I was doing at that point. I was eating up until, but I wasn't eating in excess because I was trying to detox, and detox was rough. Detox was really rough. Okay, so that was like the first 3 months, and then it hits December. So I'd been doing that, and I was only eating in my house. I was only eating like weighed out foods, and I was like very careful. And So I was scared to like interact in like the real world, like meaning like go out to a restaurant or go to my friend's house or go home for vacation. My dad bought me a plane ticket to go home during Christmas, and I had some plans to go eat a Christmas buffet with my friend Renee. And this was like a tradition. I didn't want to miss it, but I also didn't want to screw up my like progress because it hurt. It physically hurts. And so like I didn't want to just like throw everything that I'd done out the window and start over because I had, you know, I screwed up. So I wanted to go to the doctors at that point, and I wanted to kind of see where my B6 was. I knew based upon the B6 toxicity, the Understanding B6 Toxicity like PDF, that you should go get your blood draws, like a bunch of different blood draws on like every 3 or 4 months. I was only convincing my doctor to do a certain amount. I wasn't trying to push it because, as I said, it was already difficult. So I wasn't doing all the ones that they suggested, and I also wasn't buying all the ones that they suggested because like financials suck. And like if I felt okay, like I just assumed that it was going to be somewhat okay. But they suggest a ton, and they suggest the ones that you can buy yourself if nobody's really listening. But like literally, who has the money to do that, right? Like, I don't know. And like the energy to do that like every 3 or 4 months. But I knew I was gonna go from an environment that was controlled, that I kind of like had control over it, and I, you know, eating food at my own house without, you know, having to worry about, is this processed? Is this fortified? Does this have extra stuff? Like, is this gonna screw up my whole thing? Because at that point, I'm still not an expert on this topic, but I kind of understand a little bit of what I can do now because I'm a little bit better. Like, I'm a lot better actually from like when I first kind of talked about this. But at that point, I had no idea how long this was gonna take, and so I was like really worried. I like didn't want to deviate from this protocol because the protocol was the only thing that I knew. And I had no help basically other than this. So when I went to the doctors, I was like, I would like to know my B6 toxicity level now. And luckily for me, they were like, okay, we'll order this test that we don't normally order, but here you go. But we're also going to order vitamin D and vitamin B12. And I love any sort of test that you can give me that's basically like information about like where I am in my body. And I had continued to take vitamin D supplements, and I'd been chronically low normal. Say if vitamin D low normal starts at 20 and anything below 20 is like deficient, I'm always at 20 or 22 despite supplementing. So it was informationally important to get that at the same time. So I was like, sure, great. So I got that in December. So I wanted to see if I could eat things at the buffet. I wanted to see like where I was. I didn't feel all that great, but I also had just barely like stopped detoxing, and like I was still not eating enough because I was convinced that I had to like get the excess out. But like I was trying to do what I was supposed to do. I was a little bit not on board with the whole water protocol. Their water protocol, to like kind of talk about that for a minute, was like you have to drink 2 to 3 liters of water every single day, and 2 of those liters has to have 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt in them, and the salt in there is to like retain the water. The salt in there is so that, I can't explain like the reasonings behind it and the science behind it, but it's got to do with like tricking your body to thinking it has more blood than it's supposed to, because there's like a blood, according to this thing, there's like a blood problem. Your body doesn't have enough blood to circulate normally. So that's why you get the whole like POTS syndrome stuff, where like you lay down, you get up fast, and you feel like fainting, which I experience several different times throughout this getting better process. I think if you have POTS, that's kind of like one of the things that you're supposed to do. So they just borrowed that protocol from POTS and they just like modified it or whatever, whoever came up with this Understanding B6 Toxicity thing. I don't know how important that is as far as like recovery, but I do understand that you're supposed to drink enough to like flush things out, but you're not supposed to drink so much that like your electrolytes get messed up, and your electrolytes gets messed up so easy when you have this problem. It still gets messed up for me, so that's kind of why you're supposed to stop. Like, you're not supposed to drink in excess. You're supposed to stop between 2 to 3. So anyways, leaders. I had a lot of not being able to hold my water when I drank that much when I first started. I had a lot of constipation problems when I first started. Not as bad now, but I did have a lot of gut issues. I did have a lot of like issues with like feeling like my limbs were asleep because the blood was not circulating correctly. I did have a lot of like, my body is cold. My body can't regulate heat that well. My body has weird electrolyte imbalance, and I was just constantly tired. So anyways, I wanted to go home and I wanted to eat the Christmas buffet. I wanted to eat B6 foods in excess. I wanted to eat fried chicken tenders at the buffet with Renee, and like, you know that I'm not gonna like die and blow up, right? Like, I wanted to know that my progress was not gonna be completely messed up. So I got that blood test, and this is what the blood test said. So I was expecting to be somewhat in the normal range, because I knew from Understanding B6 Toxicity group that that was what was probably going to happen if you just stopped the supplements. I didn't know like where I was on the range of normal, but I knew that I was most likely very fast from toxic to normal. That doesn't mean that my body feels good just because it's not showing up in my, like, it doesn't show up that I'm toxic anymore. That was what was going to naturally like happen the next time. But like, it doesn't really explain like why it's still a problem, why like the processes in your body are still messed up from like the toxicity. You know, like, it doesn't, just because it says that you're not toxic doesn't mean that your body is corrected. So it's like, kind of like a gauge on like what's going on, but it's also like not very helpful. So anyways, I obviously didn't want to eat like a ton of excess if I was still in excess, so I kind of needed to know where I was at. So this time in December, I got my first blood test with my doctor, and I didn't have to pay for it myself, and that was kind of great. So he gave me a blood test, and it came back that I had a level of 8. So in this normal value, the value starts normal at 5 and it ends on this scale at 50. And I had a value that was 3 above deficient. I went from toxic to almost deficient. And like, I was like, whoa, there's a huge range of normal in there. And so I'm pretty sure that over the course of the 4 days or whatever that I'm going to be home, that I'm not going to be toxic anytime soon. So I can just eat. If I just focus on like consuming my B6, then I can, maybe my body knows how to excrete it normally by now. I have no idea. But like, I'm assuming that, and as long as I don't drink energy drinks or like do anything with supplements, like I'm pretty okay to like, it's not gonna screw up my life. So I went home and I ate the Christmas buffet, and I sat there when I was talking to Renee, and I just remember at the end of the meal feeling like I was on drugs, because I hadn't eaten this much B6 for a really long time in one sitting. Usually I kind of sprinkle it a little bit throughout the day, and it's like very, very small amounts, versus like I probably had like 3 chicken fingers, right? And like that, just in chicken, I avoided chicken. So I'd avoided pretty much all high food things that had B6. So I was just kind of like eating for comfort and eating for enjoyment when I hadn't done that for a long time. And yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy the difference that I felt, and I kind of paid for it. But also it wasn't the end of the world, and it didn't really like kill me. But I did notice a huge difference. So I came back from Christmas vacation armed with the information that this blood test had said that I was basically almost deficient. And I didn't want to have deficient symptoms because I knew that they mirrored toxic symptoms. It was, you know, I didn't want those again because I knew what my body felt like when I was toxic. So I was like, oh God, like I should eat now from this point on. I should eat up until my full daily recommended amount. So I was diligent to try to get up to 100%. I was no longer eating up until like 70 to 80. I don't even know if that was a good strategy. That's just what I did, and so that's what I'm telling you what I did. But at this point, because I had this information, I was like, okay, maybe I don't need to like try to, you know, get the storage out so fast, and like I can just eat normal, the normal amount, and then stop. So I would eat up until 1.3 mg every single day to the best of my abilities, and I would drink my water. But I also stopped drinking the water thing because at that point I was not holding on to the water very well, and it was causing me all this bloating, and like I just didn't feel that well, and it wasn't working very nicely in my body. It made me feel really uncomfortable, and I had like super big belly, and I think I had a lot of inflammation, and like my processes in my body was just not working the way that it does now with the amount of water. So I stopped adding salt to my water, and I had more problems. So I deviated from the protocol, and I deviated from my original strategy of eating up until there was a deficit, like eating to 70%. So I changed a couple of things, and I don't really know if I was supposed to, but I did change a couple of things. So I was eating up until 100%, but I was not drinking the water thing. I could barely exercise, but I was noticing that when I did exercise, I had problems with the electrolyte replenishment. It was difficult. I couldn't just drink like electrolyte drink and then like feel better. It was really complicated to get all these things in order because all of my internal things were not working very nicely, and I didn't know how to predict. Like it was like a seesaw. It's like, do this and then maybe it goes up. You know what I mean? I don't know. So anyways, at the same time, I'm still trying to figure out, am I in the swamp? Should I do these tests or whatever to see if I have underlying problems? So I was going to the neurologist to see if I had MS. I was going to get electrodes put into my legs to see if like I have like nerve damage or something. What could be causing the nerve damage beyond this B6 thing? Because I was already armed with this B6 thing, but I was kind of like keeping it mum because I wanted to see if they concluded that on their own. A lot of you guys have said that like you went to the doctors for so many things for so many years, and they just missed this B6 toxicity thing because they didn't test your B6. But like I was already armed with that, but I just kept that kind of closed just in case they could find something else. Like I wanted them to find something else. You know, like I wanted them to find something medically wrong with me that could like explain why this was happening to me, but nobody could. I went to PT. And my PT, my physical therapist was like, this doesn't make sense that I am your answer. Like the things that you have, like it doesn't make sense for me to like basically deal with you. Because like I deal with other things and you have things that are confoundingly weird, and like you need to keep pushing. So like I tried different things at this same time to see if I was in the swamp, but like nobody could tell me that I was in the swamp. So I just kept changing my socks, right? So I, at that point, did what I was gonna do, and then it became May. So from December to May of this year, I that was when I made my crying video. That was when I was at my wit's end. I'd been sacrificing and doing this thing for 240 something days at that point. I forget what that video was, but like I'd been doing it for a while, and I wasn't getting any better. I was actually getting the same exact symptoms that I used to get. And sorry, that was my ankle. And I was, you know, not having a good time. I was in pain again. I was in despair. I wasn't finding out any answers. I wasn't getting extra help, and it was just not good. So I made that video. You guys gave me some information. You guys gave me some encouragement that it just needs to take a little bit longer. Maybe you're in rebound, or maybe this, maybe that. And it soothed my nerves enough to like know that I wasn't gonna like fully die, right? Like, cause you don't know that, because it feels like you're dying. And like, it just feels all helpless, because like nobody really listens to you besides the people that are on the internet that have this problem too. So anyways, that happened. And then 2 days later, after I made that video and you guys were great to me, that was in May, and I got another blood test. So we did the same thing. We did B6, we did vitamin D, and we did B12. My B12 has gotten to a point where like just by eating B12 through my food, because I don't supplement at all anymore really with that kind of thing. I only supplement with vitamin D and K2, and I'll kind of talk about that in a second. I don't think it's super important, but it is kind of an interesting little thing. So my B6 actually went down. It went from an 8 in December to a 7, which is 2 points away from where they mark it as deficient. So I was having symptoms again, and I was like, what if I'm getting symptoms because I'm getting closer to deficiency now? Like, what if just eating 100% is not enough for my body? What if I'm not absorbing it? Like it says, basically, if I weigh out my food and I eat all of my food, like what if I'm just peeing it out now? What if I'm actually not ingesting 100%? I know sometimes that I would eat sunflower seeds, and like I'm not getting the B6 in the sunflower seeds if I'm pooping it out. And this is kind of gross to talk about, but like because sunflower seeds are a seed, it's more difficult to like go through your system. And so I know that I'd see them in my poop. So like I knew that I wasn't absorbing everything in the sunflower seeds because it was still there, fully formed, right, in my bowel movement. So like I was putting 2 and 2 together that maybe I wasn't ingesting enough. Maybe I wasn't getting enough, because like I was trying to diligently stop at 100% according to like the black and white data, but maybe my body had different plans inside and it wasn't actually doing what was on paper. And maybe I was actually like getting rid of it again with like the regular way to like excrete it. I didn't have like a built up storage anymore. Like maybe my body had just gotten different from the very first time that I started this protocol thing to like all the way to like May, when I was feeling bad again. So because I had a lower number than before, but I was eating more, I was like, ooh, this isn't good. So I didn't want to be deficient, because that creates a whole host of problems. And so I just thought that I should just eat more. That's what I thought. And so like nobody told me to do this. I didn't see any literature that you should do this, but it just kind of like made sense to me if I saw like the pieces and I was like, I'm gonna make an educated guess. I know that people can become toxic if they eat in excess, if they have a vitamin B6 rich diet. So like I'm going to put a cap on this. I'm going to try to eat 100% up until like, say like 100% is 1.3 milligrams, mgs, whatever. I'm going to maybe like double it to like triple it. I'm not gonna go anywhere close to what this chronometer thing says the tolerable upper limit is, because the tolerable upper limit I think is trash on this, because I was taking vitamins over and over and over again that were way under the daily tolerable upper limit. I think it says that your tolerable upper limit is like 100 milligrams. Let me just go in and check. And I think that that's wrong, because I was taking way less than that every single day and I became toxic. So you don't need mega doses. So like I was taking like a little bit of a risk by like adjusting my protocol, but like I was feeling bad again, you know, like I was doing, it is 100 milligrams according to this, the tolerable upper limit. So I was gonna operate my little experiment within like what I thought my body could handle, but not become toxic. So I just decided to eat. If I'm trying to eat and get 100% and have my body use that, maybe I should eat like 200%, right? Like maybe I should just eat double what I'm supposed to, and maybe I can digest 100%, right? Like I don't know how my body works, and I don't know if that's a ludicrous like idea, but it sort of made sense in my mind, and so that's what I tried. So ever since I got the 7 blood test in May, when I was crying, when I last made the video, that's what I tried. I tried eating more, and I've eaten more since May, and it's the end of July, and I have a noticeable difference in my symptoms. I will talk about the symptoms that still exist right now, but it's way different. So to preface the symptoms and the improvement, I do want to say, perhaps if I had done nothing different, it was just that I was going through rebound, and I've like hit a different kind of like plateau before I go into another rebound. I don't know, but this is what I did at that point. So I did 3 things at that point once I had this blood test. And I also don't know if the combination of the 3 things is why I feel so much better. The main takeaway is that I feel so much better, and that's the overall point. The overall point is to get above intolerable and to have excess mental space to go on with my life and not have this affect me. I'm not trying to cure myself. I'm just trying to live without like major problems. Major problems meaning I can't even walk. I have pain. I have all these crawly bug sensations. I have inflammation beyond crazy inflammation. Things are just not working normally in my gut. I have, you know, hormonal imbalances, like all these things that, you know, were happening. So I also, at the same exact time, got that blood test that gave me the vitamin D information. And I had been getting my vitamin D checked for 4 or 5 years now. And so I had like 5 or 6 tests in order to see how my body responds to different forms of vitamin D. I knew that I have been supplementing ever since I started getting these tests, and my vitamin D has always been almost deficient. It's never been in the normal range. So I typically used to take AG1 because it came free with like my packet of crap when I bought that AG1 stuff like a couple of years ago. And so I kept a little oil that was vitamin D3 and K2 combined, and it was suspended in like olive oil or something. And I thought that that was good because of the absorption. If I had gut problems, it didn't have to go all the way to my gut to get absorbed, right? It was like in the oil form. It's the same as like when you like spray your vitamin B12. That's why people have spray instead of like a pill, so that if they have absorption issues, they can actually get the B12 vitamin that they need. So anyways, I was using the AG1 version for like 2 or 3 years. And then I threw that away because I wasn't improving any sort of amount at all. I'd been using it diligently every single day for 2 years, and I just thought that maybe it was defective because I was not budging above 20. Like 23 was like my highest that I've ever been. So it didn't make sense. I was taking enough to improve. I thought I had 1,000 IUs or whatever, and that's how much was in one single drop. And I was making sure to take my vitamin D and K2 or whatever with my fattiest meal during the day so I could absorb the most of that vitamin, because it's fat soluble. So you're supposed to eat it with something fatty, and I would always eat it with like whole milk in my coffee. Avocado has a lot of fat. Some bacon or something, like my fattiest meal, that's when I would take my vitamin D so I could maximize my absorption of it, right? So like, didn't make sense to me. It still doesn't make sense to me, but like I had a piece to the puzzle of like what else I could possibly do. Maybe my vitamin D, low levels of vitamin D, were causing me all these pain, and it wasn't really the pain from the B6, it was the pain from vitamin D, or maybe it's the combination of these two problems, right? So same time that I was armed with the information that I had a level 7 vitamin B6, I saw that I was still basically deficient almost in vitamin D, and so I threw out my vitamin and I got a new one, and I upped the dose to 3,000 IUs, and I do not know if it's improved because I haven't gone to the doctors to get a new test because I just barely tested it. So maybe right before I leave, I can ask the doctors to test one more time before I leave. But in May, that was where my levels were, and I started this whole new protocol of more vitamin D. I went from 1,000 to 3,000. Again, I'm not trying to like up it insanely just in case I have an adverse reaction. I'm looking out for like symptoms of toxicity because I'm scared of being toxic of anything again, but I'm also scared of being deficient. So it's like this weird, funny little thing to try to like fix. But anyways, with my doctor, we decided to go up to 3,000 and see if that was okay. So I have been taking 3,000 every single day with my fattiest meal every single day, and I feel better. I don't know if that's the reason why, but it could be a contributing factor. The other thing that I did was I went back to the water protocol. So I was sick of the POTS syndrome, and right before, as I was making the May video where I was crying, I had been experiencing the worst POTS syndrome. Like that was when I was in my kitchen cooking and I had to like lay on the floor to like stop from passing out. That was as much of, or as extreme as my POTS like symptoms. And I was like, okay, I really need to get my water. If there's anything in the validity of the whole like you don't have enough blood in your body and you need to trick it by adding water in a controlled way with salt, I was gonna follow that protocol. I was gonna pretend that was true. I was sick of like just doing it my way, and I was gonna listen because I was experiencing the POTS problems. I was experiencing the POTS syndrome, and it was like making me like scared that I was gonna pass out and nobody was gonna be able to help me. So I went back to the water thing and I went back to adding the salt. When I added the salt, I noticed something kind of crucial, and I don't have any information on whether or not I had an iodine deficiency, but I noticed when I ran out of my pink Himalayan salt, I had this pink Himalayan salt that I would grind up from like a McCormick grinder or whatever. And for like years now, I've only used this pink Himalayan salt. I haven't used any other salt. And I've been really picky in my food because for a while I've been trying to like lose weight. Like even before this problem happened, I've been trying to lose weight and calculate how much like calories I eat, and I used to like use calorie tracker for that purpose. So I wasn't used to like eating like various foods that might have iodine in it. I was used to like controlling my food and eating kind of like more whole foods and not processed foods and like things where it doesn't have iodine added to it. So basically what I'm trying to say is I might have had an iodine deficiency for a very long time, and I was just not using for years salt that had iodine because I just wasn't paying attention to that. And honestly, I wasn't paying attention to that until I went to the store to buy more salt because I'd used up all my salt by putting it in my water every single day. And like when I was standing in front of the wall of salt at the grocery store, I began to like read on the packaging. I don't know why I never saw this before. Like I knew that they added like iodine to salt, but like that never really occurred to me that I wasn't actually getting iodine in any other form. Because I just assumed that like processed food puts iodine in it, you know, like the salt there has iodine, but it's like, according to what I've read on Reddit, it's not common practice to put iodine if they use salt in things to like, you know, in processed food. It's like not something, they use salt without it because that salt tastes better than the iodized salt. So it's like you have to kind of a little bit go out of your way sometimes to like incorporate that. It's kind of like a haha, like how did this even happen in like a society, or like a modern society? But like it's actually kind of plausible. I wasn't using salt in any sort of capacity where I had iodine, and I wasn't even using salt. And I wasn't eating eggs in excess. I wasn't drinking milk in excess. Those are things that have iodine. Because I was controlling them because they had pretty high B6 levels. So I was, you know, as I was previously stating, I was stopping at that point and not eating that much. So like I might have had a deficiency before I started incorporating like specific foods into my daily life this last year, but like I had been in like a calorie deficit, like restricting food in weird ways before. But because I was looking at the wall of stuff, every single like Himalayan salt shaker that I wanted to buy to replace my other pink Himalayan salt, and I just picked the pink Himalayan salt because it looked pretty, right? Like I didn't really care because I didn't really taste it, because my food senses, like my taste and smell, has definitely not come back full force since the first time I had COVID. So like I don't care what things taste like really. And so in order to like add enough salt, in order to like taste it, I'd have to add an extreme amount of salt. So like I just got used to eating bland food. So I could see in a weird way how this could have possibly happened. Like that I have like an iodine deficiency. I still don't know if I have an iodine deficiency, but I was like, oh, this could be plausible. So if I'm gonna buy salt and I have to put 1/4 of a teaspoon in 2 of my liters of salt every day, I might as well at least try to get my iodine. The reason why I didn't think of iodine earlier until like almost a year into this process is because if you use chronometer, you have to go into the settings of this app in order to get iodine as a listed thing to like keep track of. See all the listed things to keep track of? There's like so many, but it's not in the regular default. And so I was seeing like, okay, in my normal eating habits, after a while, at the end of the day, I could usually see where the holes were in my nutrition based upon what I've put in. And usually I have a hole in my nutrition that it wasn't at 100% of, like I didn't reach 100% of my, what was I typically? I didn't have a lot of vitamin E. So I started having like a 1/4 of a teaspoon or a teaspoon every morning of almond oil to like combat the fact that I saw that there was a hole in my diet. But I never realized that there might be a hole in my diet, or I wasn't getting enough, or you know, I wasn't doing it because it wasn't in my list. I was assuming that I was doing well, but like I didn't see that it was in my list because it wasn't toggled on. So I actually had to like buy specific salt on like Amazon. There's salt in the grocery store, but I wanted like a fancy salt if I was gonna eat salt. I bought some Amazon salt from like Switzerland or whatever, fine salt with iodine added to it. And that's what I've been putting into my 2 liters of water every single day to make sure that I get iodine, I get electrolyte, which is the salt, and I don't overhydrate and I don't underhydrate. I try to drink the amount that I need, and so the amount that I need is what I need to keep my stools not dried out, right? It's so complicated, all the different things that I need to do. And it's hard because one of the ways that you can get better is by going outside and exercising, or like exercising in the gym, moving your body to like get that storage of the B6 that's stored in weird places out. You sweat it out, you like process it or whatever. But I can't do that because it's just too hot here. When my friend Renee came, we hiked every single day while she was here. We had 3 days of hikes. Her body does not work the same way that mine does, and my body was kind of like not doing well on day 2 of our 3-day hike. I actually had to drink all of her electrolytes that she brought on the hike the 3rd day, because I was just not doing well. And like, we had done basically the same things. So from that instance, we had the same humidity, the same length of time that we were outside. I do have a bigger body than her, but like, I could see how my electrolytes were just processing different because I was really sick and she was basically fine. And we had hydrated basically the same amount, but like, I needed more. I needed to like steal her electrolytes basically in order to fix like my problem when we were out. And I had like a hard recovery, and I have not exercised honestly since then. But like, anyways, it changes, like this whole thing changes if you add different elements to it. But this is like, I need 2 to 3 liters of water every single day if I'm just inside my AC apartment doing basic crap, right? So like, imagine if I was doing that outside in the heat. It's like 100 here, and it's like relentless. So that's what I did. I took more vitamin D. I made sure that my vitamin D was a brand that was fresh, newly bought, was not expired. Add enough to like see if there's a difference in my next blood test. So I'm kind of excited to see if like my improvement of my body, because like, if you have a vitamin D deficiency, I think it does screw up like your constipation issues and stuff. It like actually does do things to your body that are not good. That's not good. So I began to eat more B6. So now chicken is tolerable, and I just don't have the same symptoms. A lot of the symptoms were kind of erased like within the first like 2 or 3 weeks of like trying this new like trifecta of things: the iodized salt, the consistent salt, the water that's consistent every single day. I make sure to like drink that like very consistently. So it's improved a lot of the processes in my body that were screwed up just by doing things consistently. But as I said, I don't know if I would have just gotten better just because I passed some sort of stage in my rebound. I don't know, but I did those things right as I was making that video, and this is 2 months later or whatever, and this is the outcome of that. So I don't think you have to wait it out like and wait it out naturally. I think there are things that you can do. Like, the things that I tried were not that expensive. It didn't really require a ton. It just required me to know like what I was working with, and the most difficult thing was getting like the blood work done. But like, also like, the doctor didn't really give me any guidance on that. He was like, wow, like your levels are still normal. To me, if I'm like 2 above deficient, that rings an alarm. To him, it's like it reads within normal, and so he's not alarmed whatsoever. But I know how it feels in my body, and I know like what I'm doing with my daily life. So that's why I decided to try the double amount. So like, I don't know if I'm like screwing up like my long-term healing and like just delaying like another rebound or something by eating too much B6 now, because I eat more than my recommended daily amount. But yeah, so that's that. So that is all of my tips and tricks and things that I have done since talking to you last time when I was really hopeless. So I'm not hopeless, and I feel better. I feel good if I don't do a lot. My life is still limited. I still have to weigh out my food. I still have to be really careful, and I think I'm still going to have to learn if I'm in the swamp, and I'm mentally okay with that. But I think it's doable, it's tolerable, and it's not painful. It's uncomfortable sometimes, and it's annoying sometimes, and it's limiting sometimes, but it's not like terrible. So there has been an improvement just within the last 2 months. So I wanted to make this video that like adds this timestamp to this part of my journey, and I have no idea if it's going to get worse again. That could be a possibility. So I just wanted to say this is what my progress has been at day 324. So yeah, so I wish you the best of luck if this is your issue as well. Let me know in the comments where you're at with things, if you want to talk about it. If you don't, then that's cool. But one of the fun things that happened last time was that everybody kind of like just shared like where they were at and what they tried and like what they learned, and I think it's like really helpful. So if you're up for that, do that, but if you're not, I understand, because it's a personal thing. But thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time.